I've said it before and now I'm gonna say it again, I love top 10 rankings. And my previous video was quite literally the best video I had in terms of viewership. You probably clicked on it because you like it when I talk about total drama, but as I stated before, YouTube is not my career, it's a hobby, so if I feel like doing top 10s about other cartoons, I won't do it, I don't really care. With that in mind, today's video is about a cartoon that I've been aching to talk about for as long as I had this channel, Ed, and Eddy, a show that I'm thankful for in more ways than one. But enough about that, here is the video. What makes me like an episode of Ed, and Eddy is usually how creative they tend to get and how big the creativity of the Eds tend to go. And Urban Ed is definitely an example of this creativity. I adore the whole setup for this episode of creating a huge city out of cardboard and the crazy things they can do that they are not in a suburban environment. The whole episode is just super fun to watch. And the color scheme they chose for this episode was super interesting. It's very cliche to have clear blue skies in the summer. Sometimes in summer, you have overcast days, and so they went for a more pastel kind of blue. And my memory of watching this episode for the first time was in an overcast summer day. So yeah, nostalgia will be prevalent in this list. The episodes of the 4th season really were some of the most funny and yet bizarre episodes of this show, such as the one with the cursed phone and the one where the cankers destroy the cul-de-sac, but none of them top the hilarity of Hand-Me-Down Ed. A boomerang arrives at the cul-de-sac and whomever is touching it gets turned into an opposite version of themselves. Jimmy becomes a strong man.
I am Jimmy, hear me roar!
Sarah becomes lovey-dovey towards everyone, and Rolf an opera singer. Bro, Rolf singing in this episode makes me laugh uncontrollably. It doesn't matter what age I'm at. I can only wonder what happened in that recording studio. We don't know. Why this boomerang? Who threw it? And why does it cause these emotions on people? But Hand-Me-Down Ed is definitely one of those episodes we don't need to analyze excessively. It's just an hilarious episode through and through. Like I said, whenever the episodes get creative, it's when I get more and more invested. In the episode Once Upon an Ed, the Eds get stuck in Johnny's wall and tell him the story of how they got stuck in there, and we get a glimpse of the perception of the world of each Ed. In his own little, Ed, Eddy is apparently admired by anyone. Double D sees his friends as people he tries and fails to educate and berates them for being uncontrollable animals. And Ed sees the cankers as beings from hell and only hears blah, yap, and dribble at every word from Double D. Though these perceptions are funny, they serve as some genuine reflections of the sadder parts of each Ed. We can see that Eddy aspires to be admired and intelligent, but he's not smart enough to be that. We see that Double D wants his friends to be slightly less wild and feels frustrated by them at times. And we see that even at a dire situation, Ed is still a nice human being to the point he saves his friends, even if he can't understand a word Double D says. I might have read too much into this episode, but it is my interpretation. Now imagine being a kid watching this episode and you do not understand a single word of English. It's just bizarre through and through. And that's why I love it. What I like most about An Ed is Born is how accurately they nail the theme of summer of a suburban kid in the early 2000s. If you were a child in the era before YouTube, you probably can relate with this episode. I speak from experience. Me and my brother used to have an immense amount of fun just using a camera recording random stuff. Sadly, none of those videos have survived through the years, but I have fond memories of those days. With this in mind, the theme around this episode just brings a smile to my face. It's just so fun seeing the Eds trying to create scenarios to make Eddy look good, and the subplot of Rolf getting pissed at the Eds is hilarious. And Ed is Born is a very creative episode that I appreciate that it was made. And looking at it now, I'm very surprised how can the creators of this show manage to encapsulate so well the things early 2000s kids used to do. The audience of this show was really well taken care of by the creators. I wish more shows thought like this these days. If this list was about the most hilarious episodes, Rent and Ed would win the list by a mile. I absolutely love the thought around this episode. It's a vicious circle. Double D suggests something, Eddy twists it to turn it into a scam, and Ed ends up ruining it. The formula repeats itself 4 times during the episode, and it works. Ed completely does the episode for me. I'm laughing as I write this script, just imagining the way they drew Ed's face when he says, "Wait, my brain is working," and then he proceeds to throw the Easy Bake Oven against the wall for the cookies in it to fall through the floor. And then we hear Jimmy's extremely underrated voice actor scream, "My cookies! My ceiling! My oven!" Seriously, Jimmy's voice actor, Keenan Christensen? Where are you? In any case, Rent and Ed is in my opinion the funniest episode of this show. That's why it's on the list. If you hang out with me, pretty soon, in a conversation we will have together, I will be doing a lazy pun. And They Call Him Mr. Ed is riddled with lazy puns regarding the word up. The whole episode is just super entertaining to watch. Starting with the maze and watching Ed being Ed is one thing. And then watching Eddie creating a business only for Edco to go down, and we find out what Ed was doing all along through the episode, which is literally creating a path to the moon? Seriously. This has to be one of the most profitable scams the Eds have ever made. With that in mind, this episode is very entertaining, and it's nice to see that most of the kids play along. Plus, it's an episode that Sarah straight up doesn't appear, so this easily ranks on my list. My fascination with this episode might be because as a kid, I used to love the concept of lifts. I love them so much, and seeing one made of cardboard and it being the focal point of Edco was a neat concept. In writing terms, the episode is very creative too. To have so many puns regarding the word up, and as soon as Kevin comes, that is the downfall of Edco, it's just very well put together, even looking at it as an adult. Many of the episodes I like that are on this usually involve the Eds being the Eds. They are just entertaining to that extent. And Thick as an Ed is probably as Eds you can get. We see Sarah, but she doesn't stay for long. Once we get done with her, we have nothing but the Eds. The dynamic between these three is so precious. From Ed's stubbornness, Double D's extremely dramatic and extra reactions, and Eddie having to somehow tie all this together. The over-the-topness is just hilarious. The sound effects are just so subtle with this one. Examples of which include... I just find it very refreshing that the whole episode focuses on the Eds and nothing but the Eds. And I love how the last thing Double D calls Ed is Eddie, because Eddie is a skunk. Ha! Episodes that delve into character backgrounds are very rare in Ed, Edd n Eddy, but all of them are entertaining. But the one that does this more is Every Which Way But Ed. This is the kind of episode you will not see what it puts out at first glance. There is a lot to analyze with this episode if we look at it slowly. We have to understand what the creators of this show left for us to find. In this episode, Eddie starts telling us how he managed to sneak a job worker away from Johnny. And in its flashback, characters start taking the spotlight away more and more. We learn things, how Plank got its brain damage, how Naz lost weight, how Ralph used to be in the old country, and very important, how Jimmy got its retainer. But if you squint, you can see other interesting things like how Kevin had longer, lamer hair, how Johnny had some hair before, and how he has been getting his head stuck in things from a very young age. It's a blink and you miss it moment. And we also managed to see how the Eds met. We see that Double D was already wearing his hat before he met Ed and Eddie, and we see that Jimmy's house was still yet to be built, indicating that Jimmy's parents are probably not originally from the cul-de-sac. This episode ranks high on this list, not because it's a very funny episode. It's not a very emotional episode, but whomever created it really wanted to please the fans. They wanted to expand these characters and left so many tidbits for the fans to go find. It's these kinds of things that makes me love Ed, Edd n Eddy. And the more you analyze the episode, the more things you might just find. So when I said I love the episodes where the Eds are being the Eds, Mirror Mirror on the Ed is the episode I most appreciate. This episode is just super fun to watch. There is absolutely nothing in this episode other than the Eds having fun. There are no scams. Basically the Eds land on the kids playing Truth or Dare and end up just playing it between themselves. The Eds then proceed to act as one another, with Eddie being Double D being Ed, and Ed being Eddie. The premise of the episode is just very simple. It's just three friends being the best of friends, and I love the vibe of the whole thing. You can tell that everyone that worked on this show had fun making this episode. And before we get to number 1, here are some honorable mentions. Avastia Eds. I never had a very strong opinion on this episode as a kid. It was just when I rewatched Ed, Edd n Eddy for this video that I actually felt how ironic it is that at the time of this video, my actual job is working on a small boat doing boat trips around the city for the tourists. And although my job is to be involved in the hospitality side of things, Other colleagues have a focus on keeping the boat afloat. And I love how creative they got with the motors in this episode. It's really one of those things I rewatched and I was like, look Louisa, we have to do this in our boats. Head 11. This episode really isn't the best for me, but it was overall cool to see the things they go through in this episode. First, we see Eddie's brother's room, which is definitely one of the things we wished we could be inside as kids, among other things. And something about them being in the hole underneath the trailer park just feels so cool somehow. The whole vibe of a scavenger hunt, you know? And something in this episode that recently caught me off guard. The fact that Eddie has told that Eddie's brother is a whiz at bouzouki playing, and then there is a poster of Nana Mosconi. How on earth are children watching this episode going to know who Nana Mosconi is? Look, I love Eurovision, I love Ed and Eddie, but never ever in all my times that I've loved both these things, I would have expected for both these things to intersect. In fact, Ed and Eddie would have been the last thing I would have expected to have this interception. Danny Antonucci really was a man of culture, or whomever drew this bit, I don't know. Take this head and shove it. In technical terms, this episode is probably the best out of all the episodes of the show, and probably the darkest of all of them. Basically, this episode was meant as a finale of the show, where the Eds come to the realization that everyone is growing up, and basically the whole show we have been following for the past 4 seasons was nothing more but 3 over 100-year-olds reminiscing about the good times. It's kind of dark when you think about it. The reason why this episode did not join this list is because I don't have that many fond memories with it, and it's all because of the European pen version of Cartoon Network. This will probably one of those questions I'll never get the answer to, but the Cartoon Network of my country would skip 99% of the time episodes that had 22 minutes. If my memory serves, the exception was during summer broadcasting. And this was applied to all shows. Same went for Dexter's Lab and the Powerpuff Girls. The only time I saw this episode as a child was once and only once. For this reason, this episode did not make the list as a standalone number. My number 1, I'm sure, is an odd choice for some, but I can explain, I think. Cleanliness is next to Edness. Season 5 episodes are quite distinct from all the others we had before, both aesthetically and in writing terms. They all take place in the fall and they are all digitally colored. What I like about a lot of the episodes of this season is that we get to see the Eds going to school and having a life outside of summer and scamming, and that feels more relatable to me. I really enjoy the little details of the episode, the joy it feels to sleep in on a Saturday in the fall, to take that morning shower, to do chores in the morning, to spend the rest of the afternoon playing flash games, or the joy of being in 7th grade and your class ends early on a Friday afternoon so you can come home and watch Ed and Eddie. I understand the episode feels mean-spirited to Double D, but I love the episode more for aesthetical reasons. It might have something that I made with this episode. The year was 2010 during spring break. Lady Gaga and Beyonce had just released Telephone, and that clip was just non-stop on TV, and the European Cartoon Network was broadcasting season 5 of Ed and Eddie. I decided to record this episode and I watched it and rewatched it an unhealthy amount of times during spring break of 2010. I liked it that much. The episode really has no purpose, but I feel nostalgic about it. It reminds me of the sunny Easter of 2010. All this to say, my number 1 was picked out of pure and utter nostalgia. Sorry. Now, if you made it to the end of this video, you probably can stay a little longer. The reason why I'm thankful to Ed and Eddie is the fact that Ed and Eddie was a cartoon that taught me a lot of the English I can speak today. The reason for that is because Ed and Eddie was one of the few cartoons from Cartoon Network that was never dubbed in this country of mine. The reason why I can communicate in English today, it's probably because of the things I wanted to understand from Ed and Eddie. The English they used in this cartoon was of a very high-octane stuff, you know? So I am very thankful to Ed and Eddie for teaching me English, and even coming back to it as an adult, I still managed to find interesting things to learn about every single time I come back. So, thank you so much Ed and Eddie, thank you for watching, and that's the video. Thank you!